We want to introduce you afresh to Romans 8, 26 and 27. That is marvelous verses telling us believers, telling God's people, there is divine help in the midst of our human ignorance. Now, I'm not talking about algebra and chemistry ignorance. And God does not make up for some of our ignorance. Maybe we just need to do our homework. But this is a ignorance about life. Because often in life, we're ambushed. The man going down to Jericho was ambushed and robbed and left for dead. And James 1 says sometimes trials, temptations, testings fall upon us like robbers. And all of a sudden, we're confused. We don't know what to do. But God has told his child that in the midst of a world of suffering, he knew we would have times of confusion. It's like if you've ever tried to box and you've ever been hit right on the nose. Talk about seeing stars, confusion. It's like you're stunned. Listen to the verse that he says, this great promise for us. He says that we are not alone in the midst of all of our testing. In the same way, the Spirit helps us in our weakness. What weakness are we talking about? Here he mentions, we do not know what we ought to pray for. My, is that not true? I've had many a prayer meeting where all I offered was groans, sobs, and confusion. I brought nothing to God but my confusion. But the Spirit himself intercedes for us through wordless groans. And he who searches our hearts knows the mind of the Spirit, because the Spirit intercedes for God's people in accordance with the will of God. The divine comforter, the Holy Spirit, he comes to our aid. He actually, this word that he helps us, it really meant, it was a word, sun anti labano. It meant soon was with, anti was over against, labano to carry a load. He is with us to carry the load. The overwhelming ignorance and confusion about life, bad news, children in trouble, a medical report that you can't control, a life sentence saying you have terminal cancer. Friend, I want to tell you, you can be overwhelmed in a moment, one phone call. And then what do I do, God? What's the answer? What's the next step? How do I respond? I'm confused. I'm ignorant. God has promised us in a world that is groaning, in a creation that's not yet been restored, as God will do. He says, I'll help you in the meantime. And he alone helps us come to Romans 8:28, where we can finally be able to say, you mean this is working for my good? I must admit to you, there have been times, many times, I could see no good in the circumstances. I've questioned God. I said, how could this be for good? I want to trust you, but Potter, did you make a mistake? Is there anything out of control up there? Natural disaster, one thing after the other. He says, don't panic. Don't panic. The Spirit is talking to the Father, and the Father can read the mind of the Spirit, and the two of them are going to give us the help that we desperately need. And I must say, I've lived long enough that I've come out the other end of many a test and trial and saying, only God could have made it work for good. God has help for us in the midst of our ignorance.